For joining our first Women Leaders Performance Institute virtual session, High Performance Habits for Leaders at Every Level. CPSDA is thrilled to be partnering with women leaders in college sports. We will be offering 3 additional Performance Institute leadership virtual sessions through the summer of 2021, so please keep your eye out for registration announcements. I'm Katie Naffenberger, and today I am honored to play the role of moderator. Let's discuss a few logistics for the call. All of your phone and computer lines are muted, and they will remain muted for the duration of the call. If you have a question, please submit your question under the Questions tab as part of the control panel on your screen. I will moderate the questions and ask them to Patty during the session or at the end of the session. Now I'd like to introduce Patty Phillips, CEO, Women Leaders in College Sports. Patty is a sports executive, speaker, and industry leader on women's career advancement. Patty has worked in the sports industry in various capacities for over 30 years, first as a collegiate volleyball and basketball coach, then at the NCAA, the Kansas City Sports Commission, leading WIN for KC, and for the last 10 years as Women Leaders in College Sports. She has dedicated her career to coaching, mentoring, and inspiring women at all levels and in all industries. As the CEO of Women Leaders in College Sports, the nation's premier organization that develops, connects, and advances women working in collegiate athletics, she uses keen insight she's gathered from her relationships with search firms, hiring committees, university presidents, to coach women and help them grow in their careers. Under Phillips' direction, the association puts on the best-in-class leadership events and programs and serves as a catalyst for career growth and advancement for the women involved. In her time as CEO, the association has seen triple-digit growth in membership and has grown the national convention attendees by 250%. And it's expanded its membership to include men and women from professional sports leagues and corporations. Phillips also created and leads the Women Leaders Performance Institute, a leadership development program for all business industries designed through the lens of sports. The Performance Institute ignites and cultivates the potential in individuals, leaders, and teams through customized coaching and training in order to achieve peak performance. Welcome, Patty.
Whoa, Katie, that was a lot. Thank you. And hopefully we never have to listen to that whole long thing again. But thank you so much. First of all, we're so excited about this partnership. I'm so excited to be with all of you today. And we're going to have some fun talking about high performance habits. And I want you all to know this Women Leaders Performance Institute, as Katie alluded to, we've been in the business intensely of leadership development for 10 years as an organization with me here. My entire career has been about coaching and leading, and I've been passionate about it. So I've had a chance to go to the best of the best programs, whether it's the Center for Creative Leadership, the Human Performance Institute, the Corporate Athlete Institute, and this is a culmination of many of those. I'm an avid reader, podcast listener. We're going to share some of that at the end. So I just want to say thank you again, and we're so excited to share these insights with you. And hopefully you pick up 1 or 2 things today that will help you elevate, particularly during these times, which of course we're going to frame it. We're in unprecedented times right now, and our high performance habits are needed now more than ever. So before we start, I have a little 2-question survey is the wrong way to describe this, but 2 questions I wanted to see if we could put up on the screen for you to answer quickly, so we can just kind of see where everybody is at this time. So is the poll, I think the poll is open. Do I have to do anything? Okay. So first question, how would you rate your work performance in 2020 compared to 2019? With 1 being well below what your potential for work is, and 5 being you're exceeding and adding value at a much higher level. It's question 1. And so interesting, 42% are on the top end of this. Way to go. I love it. Okay, that's great. So we're going to move to the second question now. And the second question, how would you rate your energy levels right now? And so 1 being your energy is low and you are in a constant state of exhaustion. Sorry, I'm trying to read over here. And then 5 being my energy is great. I am well rested, focused, and productive. So part of this high performance habits will be about energy management. And so let's see. So basically, obviously, although we're feeling more productive, it's having more of a drain on our energy. And what that means is it's not sustainable, as you all know. So we're going to talk through that. So thank you for that. Let's get rolling here. You know, this notion of high performance comes from our work with leaders and advancing leaders. Leaders want to hire people that are high performers, and in order to become a leader, to advance, you must be a high performer. So what are some characteristics of high performers? We're not going to go through all these. You can read through them, but I think you're going to recognize a lot of these things listed. Many of you that have teams that report to you will understand you want solution-oriented people. You want people that are confident and resilient. We all need resiliency now more than ever. High performers are serve beyond their strengths, they're other focused. These are many of these things we're going to touch on, and particularly, I'm a big believer in this. High performers are coachable and coach others. So we're going to dive in now to these high performance habits. We're going to talk through these 4 categories. After each category, we're going to pause and talk through insights and actions. During the conversation, please use the chat feature. I can see a portion of that. I'll be monitoring that. I'm happy to stop at any time. Katie's going to help me as well if we have questions as we go through this. So our first high performance habit is generating and maintaining energy for peak performance. And but in order to get started, I love this, one of my favorite quotes of all time. And you know, what we repeatedly do really is habit forming. And so our excellence are really about habits. I love that. And I don't know how many of you have a smartphone. What I've been super surprised about, some of the new habits that I have picked up in the last 5 months. Have you noticed that your smartphone will say, hey, set your timer for your tea or whatever? I've been getting these notifications of these new habits I have working from home. That's somewhat scary, but the other side of it, it's a real awareness that how quickly your phone picks up these new habits. And we form habits quicker than what we think, but it's really about our intention and why behind it. So excellence is really about habits. So first, we're going to talk about mindset. Managing energy, not time, is the key to extraordinary results. I think this is a really important mind shift. We all think, oh, we don't have enough time, particularly in college athletics. You know, we're all working 24/7 and it's just nonstop, or things we like to say, we don't have enough time, but ultimately we all have the same amount of time. It's really about how we manage our energy. That might mean we can be more productive with our time at certain times of the day. It also means that we might make different choices so that we maintain energy. So interesting thought here. Every one of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors has an energy consequence. I think intellectually we know that, but we don't actually let that sink in. Every one of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors has an energy consequence. So when you're thinking about your energy bucket, and many of us feel more depleted now than ever, what thoughts and emotion and behaviors do we think are impacting that? Because it will impact us for either better or worse. Every one of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors impacts us for better or worse on an energetic level. And so all of you should have received the energy audit. We're not going to go through the audit right now, but the 4 categories of energy are body, mind, emotion, and spirit. You all, with the work you do in athletics, are probably more aware of this than most, particularly around the body. So we're not going to talk as much about that, although I do want to touch on it. I think sometimes the areas we work in that we empower and help others with are areas that we need to be reminded of at times. So please make sure after this, if you didn't already, you take the energy audit. I'm taking it every couple months now. I've taken it several times, and it's a good kind of reminder and awareness. But I think, one thing we often forget is that our energy begins with our mindset. Again, everything's choices. So our energy isn't always, although all these factors go into it, our sleep, what we eat, we'll talk about that. Mindset is actually a huge part of that. Our thoughts can deplete us. So we got to be intentional with our thoughts, our attitudes, and our words, okay? You know, we have these conscious and unconscious thoughts, and 95% of our behaviors are unconscious, and 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. And you can think about how you drove to work when we used to drive to work, how we brush our teeth, you know, what is the motion? You know, we even get into habits in the shower. Sometimes I forget whether or not I've actually put the shampoo or conditioner in because it's habits, right? So it's unconscious. What we want to do is make sure we're being more conscious of the things that impact us. And the awareness now is that actually many things that impact our attitudes, energy are unconscious. So we want to be aware of that, and then we want to make changes. So how do we do that? Well, we have to proactively bombard ourselves with positive beliefs all the time, particularly right now, which we'll talk about. But if we want to change these unconscious thoughts, these tapes that developed growing up, not only from parents, but from coaches, teachers, you know, any influencers in our life have really developed these thought patterns that become unconscious. So it's time for us to kind of look back at the awareness and understand, are these tapes adding to my life, adding energy, or depleting me? And then once we acknowledge it, we can make the choice to pivot. And then with the choice comes actions, right? And so we'll talk about the actions in a minute. I'm such a huge believer in the compound effect in general in our life. Everything we do has a compound effect. You know this with your work with athletes, what you eat, all these things. What we need to remember is everything actually starts with a thought, and thoughts have compound effects. And actually, our lives are determined and unfold first because of the thoughts we have. But then the thoughts actually create words, and the words create actions. The actions create results, and then beliefs happen from that. You have many examples of this, I know, with the work you do. The thought you try to get with the student athletes or those you're coaching on, you know, the right nutrition and how to eat, right? So that's first a thought, how you create that becomes words. Then the actions you create that you're encouraging others to create become results and the health and the performance. And then you perform well, so you have this belief, right? There's so many ways that this can happen on the positive and negative side of the ledger. In our workspace, many times we hear this all the time, what people will say, male and female, oh, my boss isn't giving me a shot, I'm being mistreated at work. That's the thought. It starts as a thought. That thought creates words. We speak it. We speak it at the water cooler. We call people. We're telling people whenever on Zoom that, you know what, boss is this or that, or I don't think I'm being heard, whatever it is. Those words become actions. So when you have those thoughts that become words, they change the way you interact with that person. And what's that going to do with the person? It's going to create a different result. So the person's going to be, wow, this person's not tuning in, they're negative, whatever it might be. And so maybe they're not going to pull you in on more meetings. Maybe they're not going to give you that title that you want. And then the belief circles back to, oh, I'm being mistreated. That's one example on the negative side. A quick story of how this can be framed on the positive side is a personal story from me. And I actually dealt with an autoimmune disorder for many, many years. I'm great now, but at the time I was really sick for 9 years on high doses of steroids and autoimmune suppressants. And this happened in two ways for me. One, in how I healed, and I tell the story of that on a TED Talk that I did 5 years ago, a TEDx talk. The other has to do with what I did during that time, which is did my first triathlon. So you all understand this. I mean, I'd never done a triathlon. I wasn't a runner. My best friend from college did it. She was always saying how awesome they were. She was riding the Rockies and climbing mountains. And I wanted that kind of energy that she had. And I remember for 2 years saying, oh, I could never do that. I could never do a triathlon. I could never do it. So for 2 years, I didn't do it. Then she finally talked me into trying it. So I said, okay, I set a goal. One Christmas, recruited some friends, and we said, okay, we're going to do this. My thought that I could do it became words. Hey, I want to do this. We're going to do our first triathlon this summer. Recruited some friends. Because we all got together, said we're going to do it. We started training. And by the way, at the time, I hated to run. I didn't have a bike and I could barely swim. That's why I thought I couldn't do it. She convinced me that actually you break it up and you can do it. So thoughts became words, words became actions. We trained and learned how to do these things. You know, you borrow a bike, you learn how to swim, you practice the brick portion of it. The result was we all completed it. And literally it changed my life. The belief for me, which catapulted my life, this was 20 years ago, was that I could do anything. If you set a goal and you speak it, and that's what goals are. We're in athletics, we know this. It creates actions that create results and it creates beliefs in our lives. So actually, it catapulted me in every part of my life, including into my healing. I cannot stress the importance of our thoughts before our words. And sometimes we forget that. We think it all starts with the words, our goals. Actually, it starts with the thoughts. I love this quote. A belief is just a thought we keep thinking. So we can choose our beliefs, change your thought, which will change your words, which will change your actions, and around that cycle. I love that. So what are some actions that we can do to change our mindset, to shift our mindset, particularly right now? I mean, there are also realities, and we are in a reality of a pandemic that's having all sorts of effects, not only emotionally, financially, economically, health-wise, all these things are happening. So how can we change our mindset? Well, we have to consume twice as much positive info as the negative info, or quite frankly, the info that's out there. We can debate what we think about news and media. We certainly know that it's about clicks. That doesn't mean there's not truth in that, but it's always the worst scenario, right? So I've had to do that. I monitor how much I can take of the pandemic, and honestly, how much I can even take of industry news. And I'm in the industry. It's just so much, and it's most of the times on the negative. So monitor and protect your headspace. And many of this part, you all know this. I think this is an important piece. We're not going back to normal. And actually, we never go back to normal. This was an awareness for me. Normal changes every day. It just doesn't change this much in this short a time. And so we're thinking it's way different. It's really not. Everything passes, even the positive things in life. So understanding that and choosing to understand that is important. This being other-oriented, a lot of this comes also from the Happiness Lab. We're big fans of Dr. Laurie Santos. We were actually supposed to be with her this week, I think, for our Division I event at Yale. And, she talks about this whole notion of happiness really being other-oriented. So if you're struggling, not thinking about your struggles, but thinking of others, making time to show up for others, establishing new daily routines, which we'll talk about. I mentioned one of mine, and then committing to healthy habits, which I know all of you do. These are important. We spend a lot of time when we speak with corporations on fueling your body for performance. Obviously, with this group, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want you to think of yourselves as the corporate athlete. You are coaching athletes and coaches on these important topics, right? How are you fueling your own body so that you can perform as a corporate athlete every day? And by the way, what we deal with every day with the hours, the lack of time off, the vacations, we don't have people taking care of us like athletes do. It's almost harder for us. So I just encourage you to make sure you're taking care of yourself like you're taking care of your others, and thinking about how we're fueling our bodies with the intention to generate energy and fueling us so that we can perform at our best. What kind of breakfast do you need to eat? I mean, I have a whole thing for every day. And then of course, if I'm speaking, I definitely up everything a notch. I need to have more energy right now than I do at other times. So I'm conscious of that. I don't just show up here. And that's the thing I think that we miss sometime as leaders, and we want to advance and be our best. How are we fueling our body so that we're thriving every day and not just in the moment? As you know, we're either improving our health or declining. There's no static. There's none. So these have compound effects, these decisions that we make. We also need to understand, and of course, we have a lot of information on that. Again, you all know what you need to do for your body. It's the question becomes, as far as fueling, are we doing it? And how can we frame that to make sure that we are? The movement piece is so important. Not only moving your body every day for 20 minutes, but moving every 90 minutes. When I went to the Corporate Athlete Institute, what I learned that was an aha for me, because I work out every day, I thought, oh, I work out in the morning or after work, I'm good. Check the box. It's like, nope. Sitting is the new cancer. You know this. And so actually sitting all day long and working out in the morning or evening is not enough. Our bodies weren't made to sit. That was an aha for me. And I thought I was kind of on top of this stuff. So we know, you all know this. What does movement do, right? How does movement help us? And these are all things that are super important. They help us generate and manage our energy. Back to energy here, right? How are we generating energy and managing the energy that right now is low because of everything going on? These are just some tips, some reminders for this group for sure. The other really important reminder, which I know you all need to hear for sure, is we have to balance energy out with renewal and recovery. We tell this to our student athletes, we tell this to everyone else, but we don't do it. So what is it? And the number one, all research, this shows the number one thing we must do is sleep. What are we doing to make sure that we're sleeping, right? What behaviors, other ways for recovery? And if you have other ideas for recovery, put them in the chat. These are just some things that actually work for me and from some of the other information that I've read that's super important. How are we creating time for relaxation, which might be different now than it was 5 years ago? For breath work, I'm a big believer in breath work. Walking is important. That's a recovery mechanism. Meditation, reading, hobbies, gratitude practice. How else do you recover? Time off. How often are you shutting down? You're not checking emails. I turn my phone, I have that thing where I don't get any dings or anything from 9 at night until 6 in the morning. Someone really wants to get me. I think someone could call several times and then your phone kind of lets it go through. But you have to, and again, I don't know with your roles, if you're able to do that at that time, you have to find time to do it or you're not gonna be serving anyone, right? So this is my gift to you to remind you that you're important and you have to take care of yourself. What is it that you're doing to set and maintain your energy? Again, I'd love to see what you're doing in the chat. What are you doing? And I think that the point here is this has got to be intentional. What do you intentionally do to set and maintain your energy every single day? I have a whole plethora of things. I've been told I have a lot of energy. And so that's great, but guess what? I freaking work on it. I don't just roll out of bed every morning and have all the energy I need every day. I really work on it. And so here's some things that I do. When I wake up, the first thing I'm grateful every day that I'm alive. I'm grateful for another day. That helps set the perspective, especially right now. There's so many people that, or family members that wish that someone could be grateful to have another day. So that even shifts your energy right there. It gets it out of poor me, everything else going on, affirming your purpose, how I want to show up and lead every day. I have a whole plethora of notes on my phone, of readings, of books by my nightstand, things that I read every morning. I'm an intentional breath work person. I started with the Calm app, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And I started with 3 minutes a day. Now I've moved past the Calm app and I'm up to 10 minutes a day. So it shows you how these habits can build. And I do really, really slow breaths in and out from the abdomen. And the research on this. With the pace of our lives right now, we're actually not breathing. That's why I used to be a cardio junkie. When I worked out, I wanted to run, or I was a spin class person because I loved the breathing, and that gives us the high. I'm lifting weights now. I've pivoted from triathlons and cardio into a different form of workouts. And so the breath work, it made me really aware that I'm not taking deep breaths. I talk fast, as you can see, we're always in motion. And so I at least I know I'm getting 10 minutes of deep breaths. every single day, and we know the benefits of that. And now actually, because of that, I do pause between meetings and take deep breaths because I feel differently in my head. So hydration, you know this, scheduling your times, all these things, eating vibrant food. I use the word vibrant purposely there. You know, what kind of food are we putting in our body so that our most important vessels, so that we perform at our best? Many people are putting better fuel in their cars than they put in their body. So I intentionally focus on vibrant, colored food, fresh food, dot box food, all those things. Again, this group of all groups understands that. Choosing kindness, prioritizing sleep. My day today started last night. My day started last night. That's why I turn off my phone and I make sure I get the sleep, because I get up at 5 and I want to make sure I have the energy throughout the day. So you got to prioritize sleep. So I'm going to pause there, and I want to ask, you know, not only what maybe some aha insights, and please put them in your chat, or Katie can help with questions, but more importantly, was there one action you would take from that section, which was really about how we generate and maintain energy for peak performance? Have we ever framed it that way in our lives? This is a high performance habit, is being intentional about generating and maintaining our energy through our mindset, through how we fuel our body for performance, and how we balance our energy in and out in this category of generating, maintaining energy. Any questions, Katie, this section?
We don't have a lot of questions, but we have some great ideas for generating energy. We have joyful play, we have meditation, stretching, getting in nature. And so those are all really great ideas from the group.
Great. I can't see any of that, so that's great. I love the stretching. Actually, what part of my morning routine is actually the foam roller. I foam roll twice a day. I know you all be so proud of me. So that's another habit. And that's a commitment, and it's really hard, but yes. So moving on, cultivating a growth mindset. We focus a lot on this with leaders at all levels. And what's fantastic about leadership and really potential, I'm fascinated by human potential, is that everything is learnable today, everything. When I was coaching way back in the day, I used to teach a class on leadership. And the first day, we would pose the question, are leaders born or made? And there used to be a dialogue. And back in the day, people kind of thought leaders were made. Now are born. Now everyone knows leaders are made. Everything is learnable, including emotional intelligence. Everything is learnable if you choose to grow in this area. And that's what a growth mindset is about. And it's not about comparing yourself to others. It's about you. It's about reaching your potential every day and then going beyond that. So try to be better than yourself every day. So what is a growth mindset? It's a belief that our basic qualities are things we can cultivate through efforts. And again, those of us in the business of athletics get this. If I was in person, I would ask you how many of you were athletes. You understand this. We believed we could get better every day with our sport and with coaching. That's why we were so fascinated by it. And as a coach, I lived that as well, believing my players could get better every day. And I am that way with my team now. I still have a team, 13, I love it. But a growth mindset believes that a person's true potential is unknown and unknowable. I love that. It's impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with training and work. And so, we teach this, I thought my potential for doing a triathlon was 0. Then it was maybe here. Then I do one, a short course, by the way, which I barely finished. And then my potential is an Olympic course. I had friends that started with me that first year. They went on to do Ironman. Me, no go. That's not where I wanted to spend all of my time training for that. But their potential was at first just to do a short course. And then your potential grows with everything, and your potential is unknowable. And work, you don't know what the ceiling is until you keep pushing yourself to get there. So I love this concept. And the beautiful thing is you can cultivate a growth mindset. Some people are actually, if you read the book by Carol Dweck, which I love, there are some people that tend more to a growth mindset, but everyone can cultivate and actually change that and grow a growth mindset. Here are some ways to do that. First of all, stop trying to be perfect. I spent years in therapy trying to be Patty perfect. So trust me, I'm going to save you a lot of money. It's okay. We have to embrace our imperfections, because when we try to be perfect, we don't try new things. And that's how we grow and learn. We have to view challenges as opportunities. And right now, this is a great example. In the pandemic, the organizations, the businesses, the departments that have seen this challenge as an opportunity got in front of it and are surviving and will be thriving. And so that's a choice that you make. And the leaders, you can see the leaders that have made that choice early on here. I love, normally when I have more time, I go into the research on brain plasticity, that our brains, they used to think that was set. It's not. Our brains are growing all the time. So our minds are part of that. I love using the word learning. We're never failing. It's just failing is information. So we're always learning. Using the word yet. I haven't done a triathlon yet. What is it in your life that you haven't done yet? Whether it's a physical feat, whether it's some kind of changing, by the way, I hadn't gone gluten-free yet. Now I'm gluten-free. I hadn't gone dairy-free yet. Now I'm dairy-free. We don't do these things until you do them. So instead of saying I can't, it's yet. Love that. Learning from others. Someone who's always done something similar, and there's always a pathway. It makes it a little easier to go down that pathway. And I'm super conscious. I believe in words, excuse me, the power of words. What is a bad thing? We don't know what's bad, because always something good can come out of it. So be really careful. Is it unprecedented? Yes. Is it, some things are not ideal, but ultimately, if we choose, we're going to get better and see something better on the other side. I'm a big believer in that. Love this quote. I'm a quote person. And I have been for like 50 years. And this is probably my top 5, because I want to become better every day. Becoming is better than being. I love that thought, that we don't know what our potential is, and we can become a little bit better every day. Any of you old enough to remember that? Remember that, God, that 2% thing? It was a little DVD about what would happen if we got like, what was it? The 2%, like the boiling water, when the water boils, that line between boiling water that can move a locomotive train, it's like getting that little bit more all the time. It was a really bad story. I'm going to take that out next time. But I got to find it because it was really good. So pause on this section. This was about cultivating a growth mindset. First of all, I want to know, are we doing this as a group? Do we believe? And what were some of those action items or ways we could cultivate a growth mindset that were ahas for you? What might be some new things that you're going to incorporate, possibly using the word yet? So how can we cultivate a growth mindset? Any questions or thoughts on that?
Just that our organization actually has growth mindset as one of our core values. So we talk about that a lot. So there's a lot of people that know exactly what you're saying.
I love it, and it's huge. And honestly, it can change. It's a game changer. It really is. And when you have a growth mindset, you really notice those around you that don't. So when we talk about advancement, when we use this kind of information in advancement and leadership, I can tell you, leaders choose people in their teams and their senior leadership teams that have a growth mindset. It's like one of the top categories now for leaders that they're looking for in others is growth mindset. So that's great. Of course, we got all of the high performers here. Yeah, Katie, sorry. Anything else?
That was pretty much the comments on that round.
Okay, great. So now this notion of communication with intention is super important in high performance habits. High performers actually communicate differently. This goes back to intentionality around thoughts, which become words, but just intentionality around communication. We've gotten sloppy as a culture. Social media, we've gotten really sloppy. I actually saw something on the news last night that they were showing tweets about the football getting canceled, and one student athlete said, I can't remember it was like SMH. And I thought he was going, and it was shaking my head. I was like, I can't keep up with all the things, right? Speak, let us speak. And what's happening is creating really, really bad habits. So First of all, remembering that words have power and energy. You know, if we all can take a moment and think about any time someone said anything that hurt us, because we kind of think, oh, I was just joking, it was just words. No, you know, words have power and energy. I think also the racial awakening and reckoning that we've had the last 5 months have brought that to light as well. Words matter. So they are literally things that go out there in the universe. So the first thing to remember is that actually words have power and energy. So choosing your words very intentionally is super important. The words we speak are a reflection of how we feel and influences people's perceptions of us. Now, we spend a whole other section on perceptions for people wanting to advance into leadership roles, because interestingly enough, and not surprisingly, are the perceptions that others have of us impact our ability to ascend in organizations. So how you speak influences that. And that means, are you the negative, Nancy or Ned, or are you the one saying everything is figure outable? We'll find a way. You know, there's an opportunity here. And again, the people that are always the naysayers saying what can't be done, there's a perception around that. Everything can be done. Do you know, years ago, if someone had said, when I was in college, if someone had said that you're going to carry around a phone that's this big, that will have all of your financial information on it, that will, you can immediately communicate people through something called text, your email, that literally the computer will be put into this phone, I would have said, no way, right? Everything is possible. So how you speak should reflect that. And you need to know people are drawn to believers, to doers, because everything is figure outable. Super important. Communicating with intention. Back to what I was saying earlier. What you say and how you say it has implications for how you are perceived in your environment. I didn't make this up. So arguing on if that's fair doesn't matter. This is the reality. This is what we know from research about leaders. And the reality is perceptions directly impact your ability to ascend an organization. I know there's men and women on this call. As a women's leadership organization, perceptions are a huge factor in many categories, including executive presence and dress for whether or not women will advance. Is that fair? No. We're not here talking about what's fair or not fair. This is a reality. You need to know the words you say have an impact on your ability to lead, advance, and really get your message across in the way you want. So understanding that sometimes the subtle difference in our attitude, because remember the thoughts come first, which make a major difference in our future, can be as simple as the language we use. So changing little words can impact our future. So they have compound effects. So let's look at this. These are all words that we've all said, including me. And honestly, we've probably said a lot of these right now. Like we're overwhelmed, we're crazy busy. Why us? Why now? Why this stupid pandemic? Like why? So, you know, it's impossible. We'll never be able to do this. It's impossible right now. So this is not a judgment. These are societal words. They're cultural words. If you want to stand out and look different, being thoughtful about these words and pivoting, choosing other words. And so you don't want to be fake, but how else can we, it's a mindset. And so we are very busy. We are all super busy. As an organization, we're a nonprofit, we're serving a lot of people. We are literally, we have very full lives. And what we say internally, we have talked as a team to say, when we're crazy busy or overwhelmed, why is that? Because we have a lot of work. Why is that? Well, because we have jobs, because we have a large membership. Why? So you keep asking the why, and ultimately the why is, wow, I mean, we're actually really lucky. We're blessed. We're in a business that is full. So how can you reframe these words, the reality of the word, because you don't want to be fake, but what's the other way to reframe it that's still truth? And for me, these are truths that, you know what, I'm thriving every day. Survive. We're living. So we have a choice to then thrive through that. You know, we're overwhelmed, crazy busy. Christina, who's sitting right here, will always go, hey, we have a very blessed and abundant week, right? So we know what that means. It's very full to the brim. But you know what? What's the opposite? That we don't have jobs, that we don't have anyone reaching out to us. So we get to choose those words, and it gives us energy, back to our energy, right? You know, are we ever really shafted? Honestly, if you're shafted, it wasn't meant for you anyway. You get a learning and you move on. And don't let the door hit you behind the people that are shafting you. So instead of spiraling down that story, frame it as a challenge to go get a new job, to find a new boss, to do something different. Again, you can reframe that. You know, everything's hard, or is it? Or is it just that we're growing? New things, it's new. And again, I love this word possibilitarian. Everything is possible. There is no impossible. There's nothing. They said going to the moon was impossible. It's not. Walking around with a little miniature computer in your pocket, it's not impossible. We're going to have non-person driving cars. What the hell is that called? Like, whatever. Like, nothing's impossible. So know that. So this has an impact, these words, and as leaders, we talk about that. Words have an impact on your influence as a leader, as a teammate, you know, getting your point across all the time. And these are choices we can make, and actually starts back with the mindset that we talked about. So the question is, do we want to make the decision to stop saying what we don't want? I don't want to work 14 hours a day anymore, and start saying what you do want. I want to be fulfilled every hour of the day in my job. And you know what? If you choose that and you're fulfilled and it's 14 hours, you don't notice it's 14 hours. So that's how those small words can really change. If you do the research on high performers and their communication habits, these are not rocket science, but think about it. Not only as you as a leader, but think about your leaders. Do they actually do this? We all know listening is important. Are they listening? Are you listening? What does that mean? Connecting emotionally. This one is important. Right now, you can't just get on Zoom calls without checking in with people. How's everybody doing? They've got kids running around behind them. They might have family members in the hospital. You got to connect. And that's one of maybe the big things that this has taught those leaders that were not emotionally aware before. So communicators connect emotionally, high-performing communicators. Giving and receiving feedback. We call this coaching. I'm a coach. I lead as a coach. I was a coach. I want to be coached. I just asked Christina before this, coach me up. How'd this go last time? What do we need to change? Like, I want to get better. So feedback is coaching. We don't even use the word hard conversations around here. It's actually coaching. And that comes from connecting emotionally, people believing that you want the best for them. That takes investment from the beginning. You know, honesty is super important. I mean, this is obvious, but are you doing it in your communication? Are your leaders doing it? The transparency, the honesty, being optimistic, but direct. Optimism, this is not Pollyanna anymore. You can be direct and optimistic if you believe in a growth mindset, that everyone can become their best self, that their potential is unknowable. So what's the optimistic view of that? And, you know, this is important. Timing and discernment. So what is the timing of what's going on right now? If you're a sports supervisor and your coach lost a game in triple overtime the night before, you know, talking about the expense report at 8 o'clock the next morning, probably not the best timing. And you have examples of that. So that's a high performing communicator, understands timing. That's also a high EQ or social intelligence portion of communication. And aware of your verbal and nonverbal impact. We talk a lot about nonverbal impact in person, the power pose, you know, how you open up, how your desk is set, how you're communicating with folks. Now think about it over Zoom. You know, what is the impact of your posture? I can't see all of you right now, but we talk to our team. When we have a team of 13, when they're sitting there like this on Zoom, well, they don't do it anymore because we've called it out, or back, you know, and with their cameras off, all that's noticeable. So you can make the decision about whether or not you think that's the best for your professional development and advancement. If you were the one running the meeting, think, what do you want people to look like on the call? That's how you should act on all the calls. So body language is super important, and probably even more so now on Zoom, because some of these other nonverbals are harder to see. We always say, you know, eyes up, phones down. That's what we would do in our staff meetings, phones down or not in the room. So that's different on Zoom. But guess what? If I'm sitting here on my phone, you all can tell. So that's a form of communication. Are you dialed in? Really, really important insights there. Okay, so pause. That's category 3. We've got one more category. Any insights, actions, questions on a high-performing communicating with intention, which is understanding that your words have impact and compound effects. None of this is just like in the moment. Over time, the compound effects. And then those high-performance communication tips. Any questions? Anything you want to dig in deeper on? Katie?
Yes. We have a great question from Sophie about expanding more upon how you get feedback from individuals. You mentioned asking Christina to coach you up. Can you talk a little bit more about how we can get great feedback to know if we are doing a good job personally as a leader? That's what it says.
Great question. Well, first of all, having a relationship. So this goes into emotional and social intelligence that we're going to talk about in the next category. When you have a relationship of trust and loyalty with your superior because you have managed up, you're an overachiever, you're a great performer, you practice all your high performance habits. Number one, that helps. And then you go into the question. And honestly, I even think using the word coachable as opposed to feedback. I think feedback, never use the word criticism. No one is going to criticize you. So don't use that word. And it's not criticism because you believe in a growth mindset. So part of it is to thinking about the other person and how they perceive your question. You know, you don't want them to be defensive. You want them to know they're seen as a mentor, advisor. And so I think saying, hey, thanks so much. You know, I really admire your leadership skills. I'm working on mine. And in this category, I'd love some coaching. How am I doing? What can I do better? And I think that immediately disarms someone. You know, timing and discernment are also super important. The other thing I tell people is you all probably have people managing up to you. You're probably overseeing folks. Anyone that you're overseeing, what behaviors draw you in and connect you more emotionally to them as people and as teammates? Make sure you're practicing those behaviors. And honestly, most of the time it's about being a good human that is not self-focused. And I'm a huge believer in that. And a lot of times we're getting all the information we need from others. And so we know what works and it's not working. So when you're managing up, you need to think about what's working, what worked and didn't work for you. Now, are there individual differences? Yes. Are there certain leaders that want you to email instead of talking in person and all that? Yes. That's your job in managing up, which is actually we're not talking about in this session, but I believe we're going to spend another session on managing up, understanding your boss, you know, your direct report and how they communicate is really important in that. Timing and discernment. But I think it also boils down to making sure they know you believe in becoming better. You have a growth mindset. You want to be better for the organization and you want feedback or coaching to get there. And then I don't think there's any leader that doesn't want to give you that. And we've created a culture here where we're coaching all the time. So it's never that anyone feels like they're bad. No one's perfect. No one is perfect. And if we don't get coaching, we can't get better. Teams have coaching 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for an entire season, right? And so players know that they're getting coaching to get better. So I always frame when we have a new employee, even during the interview process, I say we coach each other here nonstop. And we talk about growth mindset. If you want to get better, you'll get better here because we're in constant communication. Mm-hmm. So the reason that took a long time is because none of these answers are one sentence answers. They are about the relationship that you develop, the mindset that you have in life. I can tell you, if your manager does not think you're coachable, that you have an ego, and we've had teammates like this before, that comes before a team, they actually won't take the time to coach you up. They don't have the time for it. They're going to coach people that they believe are coachable. So if you feel like you're not getting feedback, you know, and I shouldn't say it that way, those that don't get feedback many times are ones seen as ones that are not willing to receive feedback. This is what we hear from leaders. So hopefully that framed that for you. Any other questions?
That was amazing. That was actually a few questions. So I think you hit them all right there.
Okay, great. Let's go into this last section and then we'll have a few minutes at the end as well. But I think how you communicate, the words you use literally can catapult you in your career. It's one of those little things that we don't think about. This whole notion of social emotional intelligence, I use social intelligence and emotional intelligence as the same. EQ, you've all heard of this. Back in the day, they used to think people either had EQ or they didn't. There's so much research out there now that you can grow and enhance your emotional intelligence. And so most of it comes down to you being self-aware. So emotional intelligence is your ability to identify and manage not only your emotions, but pick up on the emotions of others, right? So this is the whole thing about how you're interacting with people. Sometimes we need to be self-aware, but sometimes it's easier to look at how other people impact us. And then we'll be like, do you think that's how I impact others? But understand that your EQ, your social and emotional intelligence, actually enable you to build trust and grow influence. And having influence is how you're going to advance. Having influence. So a way to think about this is, what is your emotional awake? So we're going to drill this down. Hopefully we have some boaters out there, skiers, so you understand what awake is behind a boat. Your emotional awake is what you leave behind when you leave the room. You know, your emotional awake is the impression you make on others. And so let's think about a time when maybe you were talking with some good friends and someone entered the conversation. Have you ever had that moment where someone did that and they left and you're like, oh my God, well, they sucked the life out of the conversation, or they were a complete wet blanket. I think we've all had that experience where someone has done that to us. So the question is, have you ever done that to others? Now, as leaders, sometimes we do, because we have to bring information that maybe people don't want. But on an emotional level, what energy are you putting out there? Again, are you the negative Nancy? Are you the one coming in, oh, we're not going to do that. We can't do that. We can't afford it. It's not doable. Or are you the one saying, hey, this is an interesting opportunity. We're going to find a way. Might not be right now, but we're going to find a way. How does your energy impact others? And of course, your words are directly connected to your energy. The key here is being self-aware, and we don't want to do this. We don't take time to do it. Look in the mirror. I don't know how many of you have done a 360. I would highly recommend it. Well, really, if you want to be great, if you want to reach your potential, you must. I've done three 360s in my career. It's probably time to do another one. And I was just telling Christina the other day, my first one in this job, which was my 3rd year, was the first time I really understood how much my energy impacted my employees, my teammate. And even the positive energy, like I'm so up, but sometimes it was like, whoa, God, like I'm not there. And so I have to be super conscious of that now. You've got to know how you are perceived by others, and we just have blind spots. It doesn't make us bad people. But so what we say, number 1, be self-aware. Be willing to look at yourself. Number 2, do a 360. Number 3, ask for feedback and coaching. Really, really important. Big important piece here is you need to have truth tellers in your life. And those are your really good friends. You have to have truth tellers. And the reason they're good friends is because you know they love you. And hopefully you can create those relationships at work, people that you trust, that you know have your best interests. So you can say, I need some coaching here. And when they give it to you, you're not defensive. You know, you have to be willing to take that. So your emotional awake, super important. This is part of your EQ. Understanding your emotional intelligence, your social intelligence, how you impact others is a huge part of that. How you show up as a team player is part of your emotional intelligence, you know, and you've got to be able to build relationships in an organization. That is EQ, knowing how you interact with each person. Coaches learn this because coaches can't coach every player the same. We know that. So some people are motivated by getting yelled at. Some people are motivated by this. Some people are motivated by that. And that's what's hard for coaches. They have to think through all those different personalities. Good leaders take the time to do that. And so that's EQ, understanding what triggers are, what do I need to know about people, who reacts to this. That's social emotional intelligence. You need that because building relationships in an organization is as important, if not more important, than your performance on the job. So being a great teammate is a high performance habit. If you don't have relationships, you're not going to advance. So it's really, really, really important that you understand how to build relationships. And in a whole nother conversation, we talk about how to build relationships with influencers. Those relationships are the ones that will catapult your career. They provide you with access to people and information. So think about that. That's why relationships are important. That's why you want to be on the senior team. Why do people want to be on the senior team? Because they're in the know. They get to provide feedback. They know what's going on. You don't want to be feeling like you're the last person that knows everything. So relationships provide you access to information, and that will help you catapult your career because you understand what's going on in the organization, and you build relationships through high EQ, through having a high metric of social intelligence. The other thing that we need to know, everyone in our industry always says, oh, it's who you know. It's actually not who you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you and is willing to go to bat for you. Now, many of you have probably heard this as well, but you need to think about that. It's not who you know. It's who knows you and is willing to go to bat for you. And the reason this is important, my first job out of college, I was hired at 22 years old to coach a college basketball team. 22 years old. And do you think that was random that I put in an application and they hired a 22-year-old? No. The athletic director had been the boys basketball coach at my high school, so he knew me. It wasn't that I knew him. He knew me. He saw me come in to practice every morning. He saw me work year-round on my game. He saw how I was the team captain for 3 years. So he knew me and he could speak to me. That's why this is important. And so we don't use the word networking. We're this networking industry, which I think is detrimental. I really do. It's about building a network of people that are your friends, that know you, that are willing to go to bat for you. That's the people that call other people for the jobs you want, not some random person. And we have a large organization. Our women know I can't pick up the phone and make calls for people. I don't know their work. I can connect them to folks, and we do have a network that does those things. But this is a really important concept. And you develop relationships with influencers that will go to bat for you through high EQ, through having a high level of social intelligence. How many of you know what Yaya is? I love this. You are who you associate with. You are who you associate with, who you hanging out with. How many of you have kids, actually, men or women? I can't see your hands, but I know many of you have children. So we know this with our kids. Who are they hanging out with? We're so intentional about who our kids are hanging out with. Who are you hanging out with? This impacts your life in so many ways. Harvard Business Review did a study years ago. They can determine your health, wealth, and ultimate success in life by who you hang out with, by the types of people you hang out with. Why? These are your habit builders. So who are the 5? This is something I want you afterwards to write down. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Outside of family, who are you choosing to spend your time with? By the way, when I was at Win for KC, which was my job prior to this at the Kansas City Sports Commission, I was the executive director, wanted to be a CEO. So I literally started hanging out with CEOs because you learn the language of leadership. I started to learn how they communicated, how they talked about team, staff, strategic planning. So who are you hanging out with? If you want to advance in your roles, you should be hanging out with people that are one level above you. So you need your friends group that supports you, but you need to be able to develop relationships with people that challenge you, that give you information you don't have. On a minor, more of a micro level, these people determine. I became gluten-free because of the people I hung out with. I started running in Hoka's, not attractive, by the people you hang out with. My friends were running Hoka's. I never heard of it. It's like the ugliest shoes. They're like platform tennis shoes. So micro level. Imagine then as you start hanging out with leaders and understanding what they wear, what they listen to, what they read, it impacts your life. Think about all the minor changes in your life that you've made from the people you hang out with. This cannot be understated. So your EQ is enhanced by hanging around people with high EQ. Are they the ones that have savvy, that can go in a room? What are you learning from the people around you? So, and again, it doesn't have to be always people in your circle. Now we watch podcasts, we listen to videos. I've learned so much from some of the leadership greats, and I can do it at home on a laptop, on my iPad. So expanding your emotional intelligence. Again, these high performance habits, we are literally skimming over these concepts, just to give you a little teaser here, a few things to think about. So in that category, insights, what are your insights on emotional and social intelligence as it relates to your yaya, who you're hanging out with, your self-awareness, your emotional awake, and then what would your actions be? So with each section, I hope after this you'll think about one insight. If you got one insight from each section, insight's not enough. The research shows the problem is only 10% of people ever take anything they hear and put it into action. 10%. So how many people are on the call? 50. So 5 of you are going to get better from this. The goal is that everyone takes one thing and improves. So you have to put it into an action. What is your commitment to action? How are you going to choose to create an action to get better? That's how you're going to reach your potential and get better with these high performance habits. So Katie, questions on that last section there?
Yes, we got one question for you. There are some people in the group that are identifying some new opportunities that have presented themselves because of the pandemic and because of what's been going on in college sports. So they are getting ready to present some of these opportunities to their leaders, and they are looking for just any tips and tricks you might have for presenting ideas to bosses and bosses' bosses.
So one quick thing, first of all, when people present ideas to you, what impacts you is something to think about. But I can tell you, leaders want solutions, period. Solutions. So solve a problem. And if it's a problem they don't know they have, then you have to frame it in that way. This will be coming down the pike. Here's how we fix it now. Here's what we need to be doing now. That's it. When you're presenting anything, leaders want solutions. How are you going to make their lives easier? How are you going to fix a problem that they have or don't have? How are you going to generate more revenue? How are you going to make the organization better? And if it's not fitting those categories, they're not listening. They don't have time to listen. The other thing we say is be brief and brilliant. Present the minimum and let them ask questions for more information. If you present something and it's pages and pages, or you go through too much, and again, we talk about this in our section on managing up. Leaders love you. They do not have time for everybody. So you have to figure out how to frame your message so that they will hear it. Put it in their language, and how do they want top line? Do they want paragraphs? You have to speak to them in ways that are meaningful to them, so that they can hear you. But being brief and brilliant and solving problems would be the two things. Discernment and timing on how and when you present this is also super important. And there's a lot more to say here. I'm being conscious of the time, but hopefully those are a few quick things on that category. Any other quick questions?
Excellent. I would love to continue the conversation all afternoon, but we're going to hit time pretty soon, so I want to just give you a chance to say any additional comments.
Well, as we talk about high performers, this quote here is important. Excellence is an act. It's not an act, it's a habit. So it's not a one-time thing. And I think thinking about this throughout your career, and even if you start now, how much better will you be in a month or a year with some of these habits on communication, your mindset, your words, all of that. It's a habit. And I do believe in becoming. So the only person we're destined to become is the one we decide to be, with choices that become actions. And so we're super excited about the partnership. I know we're going to have other times, and if there's certain topic areas we want to dig into, we want to make sure we are meeting your needs. Again, these were top lines, were some of the high performance habits that we use in our conversations with corporations and other leaders. And we want to make sure all of you know about because I think we have a membership partnership, and this is included in your membership. This event is going to be epic. 3 of our 4 keynotes have been announced: Robin Roberts, Carla Harris, and Muffet McGraw. If you think those are big, the last one, which will be announced in today or tomorrow, will blow your mind. So we hope you'll join us for that. Stay connected. We have all sorts of member benefits. Christina will make sure that you all have this information. We want this relationship to be more than just us speaking to you in these moments. So all this information on our website follows up on many of these concepts. So again, these are habits. It's not just these one-offs speeches. You know, these are habits, and we have circles where you interact with like-minded people. Who are your 5? You know, so all these things, we have a whole platform behind all this that can be beneficial. So we appreciate everything you do. I love all of your information about what else I need to do besides being gluten-free and dairy-free. I'm plant strong, I hydrate, so what else I need to be doing right now to improve so I can be fueling my vessel for performance every day, because that is your category. So I'd love to be coached up by all of you as well. But Katie and team, really appreciate the time. So excited about the partnership.
Absolutely. Patty, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. We really look forward to seeing you all at our next Performance Institute virtual session. Just a reminder, we are going to post the recording of this session in the webinar library at sportsrd.org. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Have a great day. Thanks again, Patty.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.